So there's this article that people have been talking about a lot on social media. It's going around, and they're saying there's this there's this monkey, there's this orangutan, um, that got an injury and was observed, um, like chewing up a plant and spreading it on the wound. And the key part, the important part about this article that makes it actually interesting, really interesting, is that um, it's a plant that's known to have medicinal properties. Like it actually works. We're not talking about, you know, it's just a random plant. Like it's a specific. And that's an interesting story. That's a fascinating story on its own. People are now calling into question: are these orangutans born with this kind of knowledge? Is there some genetic thing that tells them that that's what they should do, or is it passed down by other orangutans? Was it learned from other orangutans? And I'll certainly say the more interesting outcome, if you ask me, is that it was learned from other orangutans. And the reason I think that's more interesting is because, you know, that these ideas and this knowledge is not something tangible that exists. It's ideas are just ideas, right? You can't pick up an idea and touch it, and like, in a literal sense, you can't pick up DNA or anything like that. But when we're talking about genetics, we're talking about something that's physical and it's real, and obviously everything is a consequence of some physical phenomena. I mean, I say obviously, there are other interpretations, I'm sure, but going with the bog standard model of what most people understand, observe our world to be, you would think, everything is a consequence of some physical phenomenon. And that's true, but ideas and knowledge occupy this more kind of, aphysical, like metaphysical space where, okay, knowledge, you can argue, is a consequence of real phenomenon. Knowledge is like electrons in the brain, and it means something, but it's not something that one orangutan can just give to another, and it's not something that a parent can give to their child. It has to be taught and it has to be learned. And what's fascinating about it is that it never went missing. This is knowledge that still, from whenever it was learned by orangutans, it still persists. And maybe orangutans are learning it for the first time today. I don't doubt that, independently discovering it, because there are so many examples of people independent from each other coming up with the same ideas and the same knowledge. But it's significant if there's like evidence and we can maybe prove that it's being taught and it's being learned from other orangutans. It is significant because then it becomes a situation where it's like, okay, this knowledge is successfully getting passed down from orangutan to orangutan over generations, and somehow it's not lost. You would think that it could get lost, right? That the knowledge that these orangutans figured out, at some point it could be forgotten. It could be, it only takes one generation of orangutans to not teach it to their kids. I don't like the way I'm wording it makes it sound like the orangutans are putting their kids through a school that teaches them these things. Obviously, when I say teach, I don't mean it in the way that we generally teach. Although there are similarities. If it is the case that they're learning by, observation, well, that's how a lot of people learn, right? That's how a lot of people learn. So there are similarities, if that's the case. I don't want to say for sure what is or what isn't the case. I find it an interesting thought. We are very good at knowing things. Humans are so good at learning things. It's the recall, right? Your memory can be so good, but if your recall isn't there, then there's no point, because you can't access those memories. And this is, this is an important part of learning. It's like, you can know something once you're prompted, but to be able to access the memory without the prompt takes extra diligence. Like, I could learn something, and then when I am prompted on it, I can talk about it. But if I were to do an exam, and I need to pull that knowledge from thin air, I have to do extra work to get to that point. I have to do enough work on, like, flashcards and stuff, which challenge you. The point of flashcards is they challenge you to, repeatedly recall that knowledge without knowing what flashcard comes up next. It's very effective, right? So I find it very, very interesting, if it is true. I find it very, very interesting that these orangutans could possibly have passed down this information this many times, and it makes you wonder what has been forgotten, because we know stuff that we don't know. Like, we are aware of things that we don't know about, but we know that they're a thing. Like, I could tell you, like, on a personal level, I could say, okay, chemistry. I don't know about chemistry, but I know that I don't know about it. But there's also things that I don't know about. What is it that orangutans once knew that we don't know that they used to know, right? Like, there could be lost information, lost wisdom from these animals that that we will never be aware that they had even conceived of. I mean, you see these articles where it's like, this bird started using tools. It started it started using stones to do stuff, and you see these articles that are like, this monkey has entered the stone era, right? It's making tools. Fascinating, amazing stuff. But they don't all know how to do that. And if that monkey doesn't pass on the knowledge, and I suspect that it won't, I suspect that it might be too complicated of an idea for a monkey to effectively communicate. But I don't know. That's speculation. But what I'm really saying is, if those, like, monkeys can communicate that idea, then maybe they can keep climbing the tech tree. I mean, that's an interesting idea, right? We have monkeys walking around that can, enter the Stone Age, and that just becomes the norm. Like, the reason we're talking about this stuff is because it seems exceptional. Like, it's not stuff that we know about. We don't know about this kind of thing because, it's new information. It's new to us that there might be evidence of orangutans learning and figuring this stuff out. I mean, it might not be new to the scientific community. I don't claim that, but it's new to me. I didn't know that was something they did. And it's impressive. It's endlessly impressive what other animals can do, because they haven't made the leap that we did. I don't know what that leap is specifically. Are we saying that the leap that distinguishes us from monkeys is it reasoning? Can they not reason? I don't know. They seem to have figured out how to make tools and heal themselves and be like, practice medicine. Is it something else? I don't know. I don't know what it is, but it's interesting. It certainly is interesting to think about what are the things that these kinds of animals are learning. And is there knowledge they have that we don't? Probably. Right? Probably. That's kind of interesting to think about. Like, what do the animals know that we don't necessarily know? I mean, the amount of information they know that we don't must just perpetually get smaller. But at some point, you can imagine it was quite a lot. I mean, I imagine orangutans, I would posit, probably figured out the leaf thing before humans did. Right? Like, that could be possible. It's interesting because you have to reason, right? Like, if it's something that an orangutan came up with one day, they must have tried it. Like, they must have applied the scientific method. They tried this plant and they saw that it healed better. I mean, that's so hard to believe that an animal could do, right? It seems like a ridiculous thing to say that this monkey, like, I don't know if orangutans are monkeys. I don't know a lot about the scientific classification of like, those guys. I know that not all, like, primates are monkeys. I mean, obviously not, because we're primates, but yeah, I know there's a difference between a gorilla and a monkey. I just don't really know what it is. Is it the tail? If it's a tail, then I would guess that a orangutan's not a monkey. It's a very interesting question. I don't know. Well, Diddy Kong has a tail, so he must be a monkey. By that logic. But then why would you distinguish them by the tail? There's so much different between Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong that calling out the tail as the main difference seems like a really weird choice. I would love to see a gorilla with a tail. Does that exist? I think that would look really cool. With a big tail though, not like a little one. I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting because there's a lot of stuff that you probably can't access without heavy prompting. But like, if I come back to a hobby that I used to have, or even like listening to music, like you listen to a song you haven't heard in ages, and maybe, just maybe, you'll be able to sing all the lyrics. But if someone just told you the name of the song and asked you to sing it, you probably wouldn't be able to. Like, the information's in there, but you need the prompting. I've definitely had that experience. I find it very interesting. I do. I think just the idea of ideas is so interesting to me because they're not a physical thing that you can touch. They're this kind of, and they're this. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. Yeah.